Myself, Jangam Gangmai, prosthetist and orthotist on behalf of CRC Sikkim. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all on today's webinar on the topic of evidence-based prosthetic management for transfixial amputee. As a part of this prestigious organization, which is functioning under the administrative control of NIEPVD Dehradun and has all rehabilitation services under one group like physiotherapists, occupational therapists, prosthetic and orthotic, clinical psychologists, audiologists, speech therapists, vocational trainers, and special education. As we know, COVID pandemic is going on, so it is very difficult to move out, especially for the person with disabilities, to get any rehabilitation help. In this webinar, we all will get to know how the amputee patients will manage their prosthesis at home environment. The main aim of this webinar is to create awareness to all the rehabilitation professionals, patients, students, and caretakers about the evidence-based prosthetic management of transfixial amputee, and to provide the better prosthetic services for transfixial amputee in terms of recent technology used to transfixial prosthetic management. Today, we have the renowned expert, Dr. Ranjit Sir, prosthetist and orthotist, Composite Regional Center, Devangiri, which is under the administrative control of NIEPID, that is, National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disabilities, Karnataka. I will be provided if you have any doubts or questions regarding this, put up in the comment box so that the resource person can clarify all your doubts. One more thing I would like to inform all of you that we will later provide in the comment box, fill it out so that we will be able to provide you the e-certificate. Now, I would like to request our respected Renashi Sikkim, Iris Murangta Madam, to formally give our patron resource person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure and fortunate to offer my fond greeting to everyone here in this webinar on the topic evidence-based prosthetic management for transtibial amputee. Now, to begin with, I give my heartiest welcome to our respected sir, Dr. NIEPVD Dehradun, Himangsu Das, Director, and it is with immense dedication that our respected sir has been playing a significant role for various committees of Rehabilitation Council of India and Department of Persons with Disabilities. These indeed serve as a great example for all of us to follow the path, and this very webinar would not have been possible without his support and guidance. We welcome you, sir. Now, I'm extending my sincere welcome to our resource person of today's webinar, Dr. Ranjit Kumar, who had done his master in prosthetics and orthotics and PhD in applied mechanics and an expert in assistive technology, clinical biomechanics, and gait analysis, and is currently working as a prosthetist and orthotist at CRC Devangiri, Karnataka. Dr. Ranjit Kumar, recipient of National Award from Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizers, Government of India, and a Special Award of Excellence from Orthotics and Prosthetics Association of India, has more than 15 publications in national and international journals and guided more than 20 master's theses, and has a vast experience in teaching, clinical and research experiences from various institutions for over more than a decade. Dr. Ranjit Kumar is also a member of Development Group for Fracture, Technical Working Group, Basic Rehabilitation Package of World Health Organization, Geneva, Task Force Committee, and also for International Society for Prosthetics and Orthotics. Now, in these times of crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone is facing the challenges of life, and especially the persons with disabilities who is already facing the same even before the pandemic. So it is a high time we take up every necessary actions to rehabilitate and educate every person with disabilities to minimize the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. With the current second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic and the third wave already expected, it is very much necessary to create awareness to the amputees and the caretakers on how to properly manage their prostheses and educate the impact of the devices. So we are very grateful to have you here, sir. And I hope today's webinar will certainly help all of us to create the necessary awareness. And I once again give my warm welcome to all the participants here in this webinar. And now I would like to hand over to Mr. Jangam, coordinator of this program.
Thank you, madam. As per schedule, our director NIET PVD Dehradun, Dr. Himanshu Das was about to grace this webinar. But due to some urgent unavoidable works, he will not be able to join this webinar. We are sorry for that. As continuation, I would like to welcome our resource person, Dr. Ranjit Kumar sir, prosthetist and orthotist, CRC Divangiri, NIET PID, Karnataka. Please proceed with knowledge of sharing in this session. Please, sir.
Good morning to everyone, and respected director sir, NIET PVD Dehradun, Dr. Himanshu sir, all the team of CRC Sikkim for inviting me as a resource person for the webinar on evidence-based prosthetic management of transtibial amputation. I am very much thankful to all the team of CRC Sikkim, and especially thanks to Himanshu sir for providing me this opportunity. So transtibial amputation is not uncommon. It is very much common and known to everyone, and most of the rehabilitation centers receive this kind of transtibial amputation. So before proceeding to the amputation management, I just want to discuss about the evidence-based practice. So what is evidence-based practice or prosthetic management? So evidence. What is evidence? We simply call evidence. Do you have evidence? Means, do you have proof? So it is something which tends to prove or disapprove something. That is basically the evidence. Or a base or a ground to believe something. In general terms, we can tell as proof. Do you have proof? Do you have evidence? So that is the evidence, means having some base to believe or to decide. Then what is evidence-based practice? Based on the proof, practices is being done. That is basically the evidence-based practice. According to the David, it is an integration of the based research evidence with clinical expertise and patient values. So only having the evidence will not solve the purpose or cannot decide the what judgment has to be done. For that, clinical expertise and patient values are very much important. So integration of the research evidence with clinical expertise and patient value is basically the evidence-based practice. According to the Kivan, an approach to healthcare wherein health professionals use the best evidence possible to make clinical decisions for individual patients. It is based on the clinical expertise. What are the major elements of the evidence-based practice? It is, of course, first is the clinical judgment, patient value, and based on the evidence. You have evidence, then those evidence has to be clinically judged to decide what kind of management has to be given to the individual. That is basically the evidence-based management. What are the different processes? Evidence-based management needs a well-formulated, clinically important questions. Having a well-formulated, clinically important question. That is the first and foremost important point, that what you need, what evidence you need. Let's say you have a transtibial amputee. Now, what management has to be given? That is the first question. So, what management has to be given to the transtibial amputee? Now, question comes, why the amputation has happened? Is it because of the trauma? Is it because of the gangrene? Or is it because of the some other reason? Then the question will again change. Because each going minutely, seeing the patients minutely, assessing the patient minutely will give the best questions. Question formulation is very much important. Then once the question has been formulated, now finding out the answer. Where we can find the answer? Through the researches, through your old books, through your clinical experience, through your data, what you have practiced in the past, or somebody has practiced in the past. So finding a meaningful research well targeted to the question. Then critically appraising the available evidence. Now, for example, in transtable amputees, we have studied so many types of design. Patellar tendon bearing prosthesis, total surface bearing prosthesis, patellar tendon bearing supracondylar prosthesis, suprapatellar prosthesis, supracondylar suprapatellar prosthesis. Okay, so many things we found in the research. Evidences, let's say 5-6 evidences we found. These are the different management can be given. Which one to select? So that is very much important to critically appraise the evidence available. Let's say on two different prostheses, like let's say PTV prosthesis and TSV prosthesis, you have evidences. Now you have to critically evaluate the evidences available so that you come to the conclusion. And once you are critically appraising the evidences available, then finding to make this sound clinical judgment. That is your based on clinical experience and the process of following the evidence-based practice. How much you follow the evidence-based practice, that also makes you more sound in judging the, concluding the evidences available. First step is formulating an answer. Answerable question, sorry. There are two types of question, that is background question and foreground question. Now we'll come to the background question. Simply, in background question, what happens? I just want to give an example of same transtable amputation. When first time it comes to your mind that transtable amputee, first question arises: what is transtable amputee? How does it occur? Why why diabetes or why trauma causes transtable amputation? What are the different level of amputation? What are the different complications of after the amputation? What are the comorbidities? So these are the questions you may have while seeing the patient for first time or maybe during your practice. So back questions basically gives you knowledge, basic understanding about the problem. These questions expands your knowledge regarding etiology, diagnosis, prognosis, or typical clinical course. These questions, answering to the background questions, expands knowledge based on the clinical decision making. Now, then foreground question. Foreground question is the major question or the important question, I would say, that actually helps in decision making for the appropriate treatment. These foreground questions seeks specific information. So there is a formula, you can say, that is called, or a model that is called PICO. P-I-C-O. P means patient. Now patient means the particular diagnosis. Let's say when I say patient, then now here it is transtable amputee. And key characteristics: transtable amputee followed by diabetes, followed by trauma, or followed by some other reason, having some complications or without complications, joint range of motion or some other things, muscle strength. Those things are also in the patient diagnosis. Then intervention. Intervention is the treatment group, diagnostic tool, or prognostic marker. These are the treatments available, finding out through the literatures. If once the treatment is available, answers are available, then critically appraising the evidences available or the answers available. That is basically the comparison of the tools or the treatment that is being searched to the various evidences. Then clinical decision making. When deciding for the treatment or the management of the transtable amputee, it must be taken into the account the patient requirement or patient environmental condition where they live or the other socioeconomic factor. Let's say you have you found in the literature that transtable processes with carbon composite or microprocessor foot is the best option available. But patient is a farmer. If he goes to the farming land, will he be able to use that system? Probably not. So putting the patient requirement in the center or the environmental condition, socio-economic condition in the center, the decision should be taken. So this actually decides the specific answer based on the patient group or the patient type. Then locating and accessing the best evidences. Where to get the evidences? Where we can get the evidences? In the academic books, journals. These are the two important methods of finding the evidences. Whenever we have some problem or something, we immediately refer the book. If we don't find in the book, then we refer to the journal. Then internet. Nowadays, Google has become very much common, although it is not 100% reliable, but it is very much common source of information nowadays. Your experience, your institutional documentation, and other colleagues can also be your source of evidences. Once the evidences are found, as I said, critically appraising the evidences. Critically appraising the evidences, we must be finding out what criteria has been used to conduct this study. How recent is the study? Let's say someone studied in 1980s. Certainly, those technology might have changed in 2020 or 21. So how recent is the study? Of course, some theory, some basis, or some fundamental questions will not change even after 100 years. But treatment will change on routine basis because of the technological development in the healthcare system. So how recent or how up to date is the study that has been published or that has been considered? What was the purpose of a study, and was it clearly stated whether the research literature review has been done thoroughly in the article? What are the different outcome measurement tools has been considered? So these are the questions need to be answered while critically appraising the article. Then applicability to the patients and the clinical practice means how similar are the subjects used in the study. Let's say some study has been done in US, and we in India try to use that technology. We have to correlate the subject type. Subject means patient type. Whether the patient demography has been used there in their research is similar to our demography of the patient. But now, as I said, the expectation of the patient expectation is met or not with the findings. So those things need to be taken care while deciding the prosthetic management. What are the advantages? Advantages of the evidence-based practice that gradually you are increasing your efficiency. Initially, when starting the evidence-based practice may seems to be tough. Finding out the article and critically appraising, that is going to take a lot of time. It may be, but gradually, as soon as you become expert or having, so these are the advantages of the evidence-based practice. Now, what are the barriers? Barriers, you can say disadvantages, you can say not disadvantages, because evidence-based practice has two disadvantages. So that is what is the barrier. So barrier is basically the time. As I said, initially, a person who starts evidence-based practice may feel that it is very much time taking. But as soon as you become bit expert in evidence-based management, expert means you have done 4 or 5 or let's say some evidence-based management, then you will have better idea and you will be critically appraising the answers, findings very fast, and you will be applying it very fast. So according to this call, he has said that I think many practitioners still do not understand. They probably just cannot get their arms around it because they are so busy with the day-to-day stuff. It is, although we may be busy, we may be having overloaded cases in our centers or the department in the, but if you start following gradually, you will be applying to mostly, and all the patients you don't need evidence-based management because you have some knowledge, basic knowledge which you have studied in your graduation, in your study time. That is also an evidence. That is you are applying for most of the patients. So some of the patients you need to update yourself to provide the best clinical management. The best way to overcome the barriers is educating the practitioners about the effectiveness of the EBP, and most important is the making EBP compulsory in educational institute and participating in the study groups and journal clubs. These are the different methods of overcoming the barriers. If it is taught at the root level, starting level, then certainly all the professionals or the practitioners will be having the habit of evidence-based practice. Okay, so EBP is a mean to improve decision quality. It's a career you have to follow throughout your professional practice. It's not a course that you did for 10 patients or 1 month or 2 months and then you are done. Now you don't need it. No. Technology, methodology is changing day by day. So it needs to be done or it needs to be practiced on a regular basis. So this is all about the evidence-based practice. So based on the as I discussed with the coordinator, that population will be of different types. So I have tried to manage this presentation, the prosthetic management, in a general term. So transtibial amputation. What is transtibial amputation? It is a surgical procedure that is performed to fully remove of a lower leg that is at the tibial level that has been damaged due to trauma, congenital defect, or some disease. What is the meaning of trans? Trans is when the amputation, in terms of amputation I am talking, where trans means when the amputation is across the axis of the long bone. That is, this is the long bone, this is the long bone. So across the axis of the long bone, that is the trans amputation. Transtibial, transfemoral, transcarpal, that is the trans amputation. So transtibial amputation occurs at least twice as often as amputation at the other levels. The transtibial amputation or the amputation occurs due to the vascular disease, trauma, or carcinoma, or there are some other causes of amputation also. These are the 3 major causes of amputation. Transtibial amputation occurs. The trauma is the major cause nowadays in India, particularly. It actually contributes around 70% of the amputation because of the trauma. And the second most leading cause is the peripheral vascular disease. And lower extremity amputation is quite common as compared to the upper extremity amputation. Lower extremity amputation is around 95% of all the amputation, or means upper limb amputation, according to this study. Different complication occurs: hematoma, infection, skin flap, necrosis, deformities, neuroma, phantom sensation. So care to the limb, residual limb and sound side limb. So sound side limb care, basically it is important because one side amputation has occurred and second side has a great role in weight bearing, because immediately after the amputation, all 100% load of the body weight comes over the sound limb until the prosthesis is given. Even after the prosthesis is given, the load is borne by the sound limb to a greater level. So taking care of the sound limb is very much important, and to take care of the sound limb, daily skin inspection is very much important, particularly in case of the vascular disease, because like diabetes and other conditions, because there the chances of amputation of the opposite limb is also significant if the care is not done. So daily skin inspection is important. Inspection of the foot, inspection of the leg area, like nails, broken skin, corns, callus, drainage, odor, all those things need to be taken care, inspected on to maintain the hygiene of the sound limb. And cleaning the skin of the sound side is important and to be followed on the routine basis. If soiled, then clean it immediately. If not, then at the end or once in a day at least. Hot water should be avoided, and mild cleansing agent should be used, and perfume soap should be avoided. Negative environment such as extreme hot, extreme should be avoided without proper footwear. And excessive moisture also may lead to some other problem. So excessive moisture should be avoided, whereas the adequate moisture should be there on the skin. The amputee should not barefoot because it may lead to the complications in the sound limb also. So footwear should be used, cotton socks or wool socks should be used. White is preferred because when it dirty, it is visible, can be cleaned, whereas other color of socks, the dust is not visible. Extra depth or custom shoes is needed if required, and shoes must be inspected on daily basis for tags, nails and rocks. Now the residual limb. Everybody knows, as being a professional, we know the residual limb care, how we should guide to the amputee for the residual limb care and why it is important. So in the residual limb, the pain is very much common in transtable amputees, not only in transtable amputees, almost in all types of amputation. And 85% of the amputee experiences phantom sensation, phantom pain or residual limb pain. Phantom sensation is sensation perceived as originating from the amputated limb. Means a person is not having the part of the limb is there. So phantom pain and phantom sensation are two different things. Phantom sensation is basically the amputee feels that limb is still there, whereas pain is basically the limb is not there, but there is pain in that area. Let's say a limb has been cut at the transtibial level, whereas the amputee feel pain at the toe level or the foot level, in the foot area. And third is the residual limb pain. Residual limb pain may occur because of the various reasons, like immediately after this surgery, or because of the prosthetic use, or because of the neuroma or some other condition. So various management are available, therapeutic management and medical managements are available for the pain management. Then edema. Edema is most common in amputees, as it can be seen in the picture. The volume containment, the major is the volume containment, edema reduction, shaping, protection and desensitization is required in provide a good shape and to provide a good prosthetic management. For that, dressing is required, soft dressing like elastic wrap, shrinkers, semi-rigid dressing, rigid dressing or immediate post-operative prosthesis. So now prosthetic management. Prosthetic management is solely depends upon the physical, psychological and social success of the amputees after obtaining the prosthesis. Means prosthetic management is considered success when it is amputee feels physically, psychologically and socially better quality of life. Okay. So while considering the prosthetic management, these three factors need to be considered, that is the physical factor, psychological factor and the social factor. When deciding for this prosthetic management, first and foremost important point is the socket, because other components are available that you have to select. What type of socket should be given, that is very much important, and that depends upon the, again, patient. Patient means patient activity level, skin condition, comorbidities, and pre-amputation lifestyle. So these are the factors to be considered while deciding for the socket. Usually in case of transtable amputation, most of the amputees returns to normal level of mobility after receiving the prosthesis. So socket is very much important and very much critical. Then prosthetic design is immediate post-operative design, as we discussed, preparatory prosthesis and definitive prosthesis. Immediate post-operative prosthesis actually is good immediately after the surgery. It helps the person in reducing the hospital stay. Preparatory prosthesis is given after 7 days or usually after a certain period of time, and it is given for basically to make the amputees prepare the amputees for the prosthetic use or the definitive prosthesis. Most of the setup practice definitive prosthesis module, that is quite common. Preparatory prosthesis is very much uncommon in our practice, and definitive prosthesis is basically given for the long-term goal. If directly definitive prosthesis is given, 30% of the cost saving is done by giving the definitive prosthesis. It is basically the immediate post-operative prosthesis, used as an early form of prosthetic intervention, helps in early ambulation, and also there is a phantom sensation, as we discussed in the previous slide, that 85% of the amputees have phantom sensation, phantom pain, and residual limb pain. So that phantom sensation can be best utilized if IPOP is given immediately after the surgery, because that phantom sensation patient has feeling that limb is still there and there is a limb. Of course, that is artificial limb, but there is a limb. So patient starts walking utilizing the phantom sensation positively and starts walking. And what are the benefits of it? That increases the chance of future prosthetic use and mobility. So better chance of prosthetic management and better success of the prosthetic management can be achieved if the IPOP is given. Some of the cases are challenging. If IPOP is given in those cases, that patient's management, those kind of patient management, prosthetic management will be a bit easier. It improves the outcome because you are utilizing the phantom sensation, and that is basically maximizing outcome. The IPOP protects the remaining limb area from the trauma, because immediately after the amputation or the surgery, there is a limb swelling, there is the stitches are unhealed, wounds are unhealed, there is a hematoma. So those things, this IPOP protects from the trauma, and it reduces the swelling. It improves range of motion and strength by mobility. As I said, it reduces the hospital stay and reduces complications such as contractures, bed sores, and deconditioning, heal the surgical wound, and prevent adhesion and minimize pain. That is the benefit of the IPOP. Preparatory prosthesis. As I said, preparatory prosthesis, somewhere it is followed, somewhere it is not followed. Now, what is the difference in the preparatory prosthesis and the definitive prosthesis? It is very much important. Preparatory prosthesis is given with the basic model. Basic model means a socket with simple sage foot and pylon. Although you need a dynamic response foot or dynamic foot or better quality foot, better quality pylon, but initially the preparatory prosthesis is given with the basic model, basic design, to make the patient ambulatory utilize the phantom sensation immediately after the amputation. That is, I said, after 7-10 days, that preparatory prosthesis can be given. So this preparatory prosthesis should be given as soon as after the surgery to combat the edema. Preparatory prosthesis is frequently used for several weeks or months until the stump has stabilized. So it is given for the stump stabilization because initially the volume fluctuation of this at this residual area occurs. And if the definitive prosthesis is given, the patient will immediately after 2 months or 3 months, patient will come back that limb has, the socket has become loose. So preparatory prosthesis is given until the stump is stabilized and bridge between the surgery and the definitive prosthesis. Now definitive prosthesis requires a clinical judgment because definitive prosthesis has to be given as per the requirement of the patient, environmental condition and the socio-economic factors. Because now patient has to use it and make it as a part of the body. So the decision has to be taken or should be taken very carefully to give a best prosthetic outcome. And definitive prosthesis consists of course, other preparatory prosthesis also consists the same: a socket, suspension, shank or pylon, and foot. Socket usually there are two types of socket, that is the patellar tendon bearing socket and the total surface bearing socket. Patellar tendon bearing socket, basically most of the weight is borne by the patellar tendon. As you can see, this forces, this patellar tendon applies the force and counter force is applied from the popliteal area. So this basically most of the weight is borne by the patellar tendon. So that is why it is called as patellar tendon bearing prosthesis, PTB prosthesis. It is a constructed system, have emphasis on patella or patellar tendon. But in this case, PTB prosthesis or PTB socket, the shear force is high as compared to the TSB socket, and there is a gap at the end. So what happens? The fluid retention occurs at the end of the stump. Okay, so these are the patellar tendon bearing socket. TSB socket is called total surface bearing socket. Weight is applied equally around the stump area. So it actually provides weight bearing around the stump area. So what happens? Just simple example I'll give. When you press your a nail or a needle on your skin, how will you feel? It may pierce your skin. Whereas if you press a foam or a hard iron of the same material, you press a larger size material over the skin. Press it. What will happen? It will not pierce the skin, although you may feel pressure. Difference will be there because the area pressure actually reduces when the area is increased. Although the force application at this amount of the force is same, whereas the area is increased, then force will be less and pressure the patient amputee or any person will feel less pressure over that particular skin area. Similarly, in this case, what happens in the patellar tendon bearing socket? What happens? The most of the force is applied over the patellar tendon area. So there are chances that this area becomes black because of the force. Whereas in this case, the force is applied throughout the stump area. So what happens? It provides the hydrostatic pressure. Hydrostatic pressure is basically the compression through all around the stump area. So it increases the blood circulation. It increases the blood circulation. It is good for the amputee, and it is most of the means all the amputees who uses the TSB feels better than the PTB. But still we have some limitation because of the methodology of the design methodology and the design of the socket, because different socket has different benefits and the limitations also. Here in TSB, if you are giving, the suspension should be very strong, and the selection of the amputees is also very much important, because if a farmer, as I said, if it is given to the farmer and sleeve and other technology, suction technology is given, of course those things has to be considered. I am not saying that it cannot be given, but those things has to be considered, that other technologies available is present in the facility or not, or that we used based in that environment or not. So those things has to be considered while prescribing or deciding the types of socket design. This is the comparison that pressure is applied like this way in the PTB, whereas in TSB, pressure is applied this way. So most of the pressure is borne by the patellar tendon in the PTB and around the stump in the TSB. These are the different suspension system is used. As I said, that other components also play major role in the prosthetic management. The suspension system has great role in the prosthetic management. So in suspension system, the first and foremost is in the nowadays practice is the suction suspension or self-suspension. Self-suspension is that you do not need additional suspension system, that is the socket itself creates this suspension or this air that is the around the stump. It actually applies the design in such a way that it actually provides the suspension. Apart from that, in the socket design in itself, in the PTB, that is the supracondylar, suprapatellar, thigh corset, waist, sleeve. Nowadays, sleeve is also very much common, and sleeve has a lot of advantages. And pin or shuttle suspension. Pin or shuttle suspension is a part of the self-suspension system. Supracondylar. Supracondylar is basically this condylar area. If you feel at the just above the knee area, there is a narrowing of the narrow space. So that area can be used for the holding of the prosthesis. That is the supracondylar. Supracondylar, suprapatellar. Suprapatellar is basically given for the support, where the posterior stability is not there. Then this suprapatellar is given. Thigh corset, when the stump is very short, where the suspension cannot be managed by the within the socket or by using the supracondylar, suprapatellar, or Murray strap or other system where the suspension cannot be managed. Then in that case, thigh corset is used. Okay. Waist belt is used mostly in case of IPOP. So usually we don't use waist belt in the transtibial amputees. Sleeve is nowadays very much common because sleeve actually provides the hydrostatic pressure. As I said, in the TSB provides the hydrostatic pressure, where in the same way sleeve also provides the hydrostatic pressure. So what was happening in the case of the old suspension system, that it was actually providing the less area for the suspension, and that was creating more pressure in the lower thigh area. So most of the amputees I have also observed that it becomes black in the lower thigh because of the use of the suspension system. So sleeve suspension uses the hydrostatic pressure and suspends the prosthesis by applying it up to the mid-thigh area. So this is the advantage of this sleeve suspension. Pin and shuttle suspension is basically the self-suspension system. Uses mostly both the cases like PTB socket and TSB socket also. According to a study that I'm just telling about this study, that weight acceptance on the amputated side advanced to a more normal value with the TSB prosthesis as compared to the PTB socket, because the weight is borne by the whole residual stump as compared to the PTB. So due to this, TSB prosthetic socket can be used effectively in the rehabilitation of transtibial amputees. This is all about evidence-based management of transtibial amputees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us your valuable time to share your knowledge. It was a wonderful presentation and a great session indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you one more, sir. And one more thing I would like to request to all the participants that we will provide a feedback link. Please fill the feedback link in the comment box so that we will be able to provide you the certificate. And if anyone has any inquiries regarding the topic, you may please ask. More of thanks to everyone here. Please, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, all of you. Myself, Rakesh Mahapatra, lecturer occupational therapy, CRC Sikkim. Here, we come to the end of this today's webinar on topic evidence-based prosthetic management for transtibial amputee. It gives me the immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks to all the dignitaries present over here. I would like to thank Veteran Dr. Himanshu Das Sir, Director, National Institute for the Empowerment of Person with Visual Disability, that is NIEPVD Dehradun, who always inspire and guide us to conduct this type of webinar. Thank you, sir, for all your unconditional support. I express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Ranjit Kumar sir, prosthetist and orthotist, CIC Davangere, Karnataka, for enlightening us about this important topic on evidence-based prosthetic management for transtibial tibial amputee. Really, it was a very wonderful section. Once again, thank you, sir, in this COVID time, taking your time out and being here with us and guiding us about this important topic. Now, I would like to thank our resident coordinator, Madam A. Marish, Madam, for supporting and guiding to conduct this type of webinar. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to thank Mr. Jangam Gangmei, prosthetist and orthotist, and Mr. Juribora Hazarika, Madam, vocational instructor from CRC Sikkim, for arranging this important webinar and coordinating in a smooth way. Also, I would like to thank all staff of CRC Sikkim for the kindly cooperation in making this webinar very much successful. Now last, not the least, I would like to thank all the participants of this webinar, including students, professionals, parents, persons with disabilities, for attending this webinar and making it very much successful. I'm sure this topic will be very much helpful to all of us. Once again, thank you all of you. If you need any type of assistance in terms of rehabilitation, you all can contact our CRC Sikkim. And also, in this COVID time, if you feel any anxiety, stress, depression, or any mental health issues, you all can contact Mental Health Rehabilitation Helpline number Kiran, launched by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India, and it is 24/7 toll-free number, that is 1800-599-0019. I repeat the number, 1800-599-0019. Thank you, all of you. Have a nice day.
Thank you,
Thank
very
you,
much,
sir.
Thank you.
Lastly, I would like to thank our director, sir, RC Madam, our resource person, and to all the participants for making today's webinar a grand success. With this, I would like to conclude this program here. Thank you all.